right, so as an instructor, let's take a look at how easy it is to get up and running with GitHub Classroom. So instructor onboarding. Basically, you're going to need to create a GitHub account if you don't already have one. If you have one, you can just use that one. You're going to need to join GitHub Classroom, and I'm going to take you through how to do that. You're going to create your own organization. I'll take you through that as well. You're going to create a classroom. You're going to create your roster, and we're going to create that first assignment. So we're going to do all of these things. The only thing I'm not going to do is creating a GitHub account. I figure there's plenty of videos on that on YouTube if you need it. It's super easy to do, so I'm not going to waste your time going through that. The other thing is the first 3 steps that you see here are basically something you only need to do once. Basically, once you've done that, you're good to go school year after school year. You don't have to repeat the process. Now, the next set, where it's creating a classroom and a roster, you're going to want to do at the start of every school year, or maybe every semester, depending on how your school breaks up your classes. And then the third item is creating your first assignment, and that you will do throughout the school year as you do your assignments. The other thing is I've set up a fictitious class, which has an instructor, Stephen Hawking, a famous astrophysicist. And then I have also some 3 famous students. So we have Margaret Hamilton, Evelyn Granville, and Alan Turing, and those are going to be our students. So we'll use those names as we go through these examples on the web. So I am in the Chrome browser, and I am going to pretend that I am Stephen Hawking. I am the instructor. And here's the process for getting up and running in Classroom for GitHub. So you're going to start out by going to your GitHub account. So by typing github.com, I find that I'm taken to a page like this. Basically, it defaults to the sign up page. If you don't have an account, follow that process that it prompts you through. But since we already have an account, I'm just going to click on sign in and sign in under the name Stephen Hawking 21, which is the GitHub ID that I created for my instructor character. And I will put in my password, and I have now logged into GitHub. So now that I've logged into GitHub, I want to create my account on GitHub Classroom. To do that, I'm going to go and enter classroom.github.com. And when I do that, I'm taken to this page. Now, once you've signed in and you've created your account and all that, you'll go right into Classroom, GitHub Classroom right away. You won't have to sign in each time, but the first time will look like this. So what we'll do is we'll go click on sign in, and as we're signing in, because we're already signed in under GitHub, it knows that, and now it's saying for the first time that, hey, you need to authorize GitHub Classroom to work with your GitHub account. And so we're going to authorize it. This is like a typical OAuth where you're authorizing a third-party application. And now I'm in. So now what it's saying is, hey, you need to create a GitHub Classroom. And to do that, we're going to need to create an organization as well, but it's going to prompt us for how to do that. So I'm going to just say, create your first classroom. And then it's saying, hey, you need to create an organization. Now, if you've already had an organization created, it'll give you 2 choices: to create a new one or to use the organization you have. I'm assuming you don't have one at this point. So I'm going to click create an organization. Now, when you do this and you're creating an organization, this is the structure that it needs to manage the classroom itself. So if you don't have one, you're going to be required to create one. This is all free, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to just call it Stephen Hawking Swift course. And so that's my organization, and then I'll give it my email. And we're going to leave it as a personal account, and I'm going to click next. And I now have an organization here. So I have this organization, Stephen Hawking Swift course. I could create another organization if I wanted to, but one is all you need. So we'll just run with that. So I'm going to click on that. And now it's saying, hey, do you want to create a classroom? And we do. We want to at least create one classroom here. So we'll do that. So here is Stephen Hawking Swift course. And so that should be very, I don't think we want to change any of that because when these classroom names are distributed to the students, it will be very clear which class this is for. So I'll click Create. Then it's going to ask me about whether I want to invite TAs, and you can do that. I can even be a TA for your class if you want to invite me into it. So I'm happy to do that as part of supporting you throughout the class. But what I'm going to do is skip this for now. And then we have an opportunity to import from Google Classroom, or we can just put names in ourselves. So let's go through the Google Classroom piece. So I can click Google Classroom, and I am going to go in under my name here. And it's asking me to grant permissions for Google Classroom to work with GitHub. And so I'm going to say allow. It's going to ask me for another permission. I'm going to say allow. And now I'm going to confirm those choices. And I now have a entry point into Google Classroom where in theory I have a roster of my students. So we're going to click the course. This is the course that I have in my Google Classroom as an example. So I will link to Google Classroom. And now I see students here. I'm going to import from Google Classroom. And I now am to the point where I'm ready to create an assignment. So if we go up here to the top, if we click on students, we see that I now have 3 unlinked users, which is fine. But we have Alan Turing, Evelyn Granville, and Margaret Hamilton were students that were registered in Google Classroom. We were able to bring them right in without having to do anything. You'll notice too that it says here sync from Google Classroom. So if we added more students later, we can then just do a sync, and that will add those students into our roster. You can also enter the students in manually. That's another process. I won't show it in this video because I think most of the teachers will have their rosters in Google Classroom. So over for assignments, we're going to go here, and this is where you're going to work a lot as far as creating an assignment for the students to take on. So I'm going to click here, create an assignment, and we're going to give it a name. And this particular one, it's we're sort of envisioning we're up to functions at this point, and there's a lab that is associated with them showing that they understand how to declare a function and use a function. So why don't we call this functions lab number 1, and we can give it a deadline if we want. I won't give it a deadline. We'll leave it as is. It is an individual assignment, but they do also support group assignments. We'll do another video on that to show how that can be done. And we're going to leave the repository visibility private. We don't want everybody looking at everybody else's code. You may want that. If you do, then you can have it made public, but otherwise we'll leave it as private. And we will not grant students admin access to their repos. So we'll just leave it just defaulted like I've done here. So all I've really done is put in a name. And I'm going to click continue. And now we're going to select a repository. So we're selecting a repository from the list of labs that we've provided. Or you can go to another repository. You can even create your own if you want. But let's look at getting something from ours. So if I click on the select repository and I start typing in here, app dev with Swift, it should complete. And here we're just showing one lab. When you do this for real, because this recording is being done probably 6 months, 7 months before the class is really finished, this will be filled with a lot of different labs. So you might want to keep typing function or something like that to go down to what you want. But here we can see the lab that we want. And we can also select an IDE. Do not select an IDE, even if they're using Replit. Because we're using Swift, it doesn't work built in with this function. So we'll leave it blank, which is fine. We'll say continue. We are not going to add any tests. Auto grading will be coming on a lot of this stuff, so stay tuned on that. That'll be cool. And we will enable feedback pull requests. So we want to be able to comment on students' work. So we're going to enable that, and we're going to say create assignment. So as we can see, the assignment's ready. So we'll click got it. And up here, right in this area is where you have this link. If I copy this link and I just click that copy, then this is going to give me an opportunity to send out to all of the students the link for the assignment. And you can do that however you want. You can email it, you can go into Google Classroom, you can Slack it, whatever communication method you use, you just send them that link. And when they get that link, they are going to be able to start their process of doing the assignment. So that's the basics of onboarding and getting going with your first assignment.